It is the dreaded cut the hole in the floor day. Now let me preface this by saying that I am not what you would call a sheet metal guy. I'm a mechanic with a modicum of ability, but sometimes I gotta shoot from the hip. I'm gonna try to do this the best way that I can, and I think the only thing I'm worried about is lining everything up. So you can see here on this bracket, well, there's 2 holes right here, there's 2 on the back side, and there's 2 right here. Oh, there you go, those 2. So there's 6 holes all together. You can see I've got these little drill bits in here, like I'm trying to line everything up. So that means that the proper holes are these ones right here. So it's these 2, and then these 2, and I'll actually just draw those in real quick. So you got, that's one of the holes, that's one, that's one, that's one, and then this one is kind of hiding up here, right under this little matting. And then you have this one right here. So you can see those are pretty close together. Those ones are pretty close together right there. What I'm gonna do is, put this cap on. I'm gonna try to line this up the best I can. I know that this other boot right here pretty much locates off of this square. So what I can do is set that down, and you can kind of shift it. Goodness, trash trucks are coming in hot. So I can shift it like that and kind of look down. Where's the hole? Right there. And I don't know if you guys can see that. Right there. So the holes are lining up, which is good. I like that. So I know for a fact that I can cut this square out, the entire square. What I'm gonna have to do is, in order to line all this up perfect, I'm gonna take these feet right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to cover them in some of my wife's gel polish. Then I'm gonna take these 2 drill bits and put them in opposing holes, give or take, as close as I can, and then lower it down on there, and that should witness where these legs are gonna go, because this is the outermost part. One little thing that is helping me locate is there's this embossment for the where the transfer case, the manual transfer case, would come up, and when you line these holes up as best you can, it is actually like right on there. So what I'm gonna do is figure out, I'm gonna set that down on there so that those mark red onto the sheet metal, and then I'm not gonna drill the actual holes because the screws that come with it are self-tappers, and that's actually from the factory. Those are the OEM Mopar self-tappers. So once I get that on there, I'm actually gonna measure in, I'm basically gonna draw straight lines around to each one and just kind of cut out a really rough shape. And then once I can get these down there in through the sheet metal so that this surface sits flat, then I'm gonna mark the outside of this with the Sharpie onto the sheet metal. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of bring the hole in a little bit. Like I'll do a, what would that be, about 3/4 inch maybe, and then I'll just draw another like equal thing in, and that way I know that this other boot, where did it go? Here it is. Yeah, so basically mark the outside of this, or of the other boot, and then just draw it in a little bit and make a second hole, and then trim the super nasty, terrible hole that I have here into more of a finalized shape. So it'll kind of look like this with the straight lines going in between each hole. like that. So another good thing is that my buddy actually sent me some pictures of his, and he was good enough to circle which ones are getting used, which holes are used. And it looks like the line goes right through this. You can see how these two are right here, and this one's inboard just a little bit. His hole from the factory actually goes right through the middle of this one, or the line, the cutout goes right through the middle of this. So I'm not going to go past here on the top of the line, but then when I come around here, I'm basically going to go like just really inboard of each of these lines up to mainly this boss, and just kind of follow that around. I'm just going to drag it down to this area right here. So that is the preface. I think I'll start by using the biggest drill bit I can, which I think is a 3/8. This is not the ideal way to do it, but again, I'm not a sheet metal scientist. I don't know the best ways of doing things. And then my wife got me this Milwaukee baby Sawzall, so I'm going to use that, and I think it'll be easier to kind of be getting under the dash and stuff more so than a regular Sawzall. So I'm going to drill a bunch of holes in here, just enough to pass the blade through, and then I'll plunge in and start doing little bit by little bit. So we'll do the rough hole. I'll bring you guys back just so I can actually set the boots down, and then we'll go over the next spot. But I'm trying to be like hyper procedural about this part, because the last thing I want to do is cut too much and then get a bunch of wind noise or water creeping up in here, anything like that. So another thing right before I stop the video is this actually showed up. This is on the first video I was talking about the manual lower console section, and you can see how far that actually sucks it down in there, and it has like a little shelf right here and everything. The part number for that is, oh goodness, it's washed out. That right there. So I don't know what the 001 is, but that right there, the 1WH5 3DX9AB is the part number for this. It's called like the drawer delete closeout something or other, and it does match pretty good. I mean, obviously it's a lot cleaner than my existing plastics, but it does match, and it does have the cigarette lighter thing over here, and then the what is that? Or not cigarette lighter, I guess it's a 12-volt thing, since nobody smokes anymore in society. But it has the USB connector right here that actually feeds up to the stereo. So I'll be able to put all that back in, and then this clips in where the center console comes out for the shifter. But I'm not really worried about that right now. I think the way I've got the carpet trimmed back a little bit, once this boot is on here, I mean, it doesn't look like a complete dumpster fire. So I'm happy leaving it just like this, because on my first video I said that you could get all that stuff for like 75 bucks or 90 bucks or something like that, and that was just categorically untrue. I went back and I realized that was just for one of the pieces, so it was like 90 bucks per piece. So I did get this one. This was $94, I believe, for that section, and then I believe it's like $60 to $70 for the front half and the back half. And once I get that, then this will look super professional with the you know, nothing telling you that it was ever an automatic truck. So, and I think actually tomorrow my entire clutch pedal assembly comes in, so I'll do another video on that. I'm just going to add this all into the transmission drop video, and then once the clutch pedal comes, I'll do the parts video, and then just wrap that right into installing it. And then hopefully this weekend my buddy comes over and we get the transmission stabbed in. So little by little we're getting there, but let's get this hole cut first. So here is the nail polish. I didn't get any grit on the little thing, so it's not ruined forever. And you can see that I just kind of sat it down on there, and it actually worked pretty good. So, except for the back one. The back one did not really, let me see, I got this. That one didn't really take, but those ones definitely went in there. So I do know for a fact, just because of the pictures that my buddy had sent, that that the hole doesn't extend past the center line of this divot right here, which leaves just a little bit of meat for these 2 holes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill these 3 spots, I guess. Well, 4, I'll just rough that one in. I'm gonna do that just enough to where I can set it down, so that just the feet push down, and then I can hopefully set that that boot on there flat. So let's start cutting some metal. Oh my Lanta. You guys might be saying, wow, what a good looking hole. It may be so good looking, in fact, that you want me to come cut the floor out of your truck when you do the swap. That is not gonna happen. I took 6 years off of my life with the amount of stress just doing this. I am just, goodness. That is, all right, so what I did was, I started out cutting this big plus in here because these carbide blades, let me tell you, they're good until you have a flag of metal left, and then it just goes absolutely bonkers. It was just, you know, with the vibration and the other metal things. So what I decided to do was switch to this, which is good and bad. It was good because it worked. It was bad because I almost caught my truck on fire, and you know, I just don't plan ahead. But what I did was, you see the area of rotation there, I always hit it on this side, no matter where I was going, so that it would shoot the sparks in the downward direction. And I thought that the insulation under here was like metallic, because it looks kind of shiny. Turns out there's like some cardboard fuzzy stuff on the backside. And it also turns out that the cardboard fuzzy stuff is incredibly flammable. So, yeah, this is kind of similar. I think the factory hole might come around a little bit more, just a little harder angle right here, but it is supposed to be about that close. I think some of these other dimples that we're not using, like this one I talked about, and then this one up here, are supposed to be like guides, maybe like the factory press kind of weep right there, and then it gachunkas, whatever. I don't know how factories work, but so I do have these 2 holes here. I've got this one's not marked anymore because I had to take all that I don't even know what that was, sound deadening stuff. So that's one of the holes, that's one of the holes. It's these 2 and then these 2. So what I did was I would take the lower boot, that's sticking to my arm. I would take this lower boot and I would focus on like this hole and this hole, and then I would just kind of set that in there just until I would get both of those bolt holes to line up. And then I would go over here, and if this one was like not going all the way in, I would peel this back and then draw a line on the metal and just kind of feather it back until I could set this in here. And then I'd be, this one, and this one are lining up, so then I'd go over here in this corner, I'd have to flip this up and relieve it a little bit until that bolt hole came into play, or came into view, and then this bolt hole here. But anyway, so I did that all the way around. I basically got one corner at a time in until this sits flat. And once this sits flat, as long as I can push out on the edges and the bolt holes line up into their respective dimples, then I know that these little reliefs right here, there's one right there, and right there, then I know that as it sits, I can take this boot right here, and those little dimples are for these legs that I used to initially mark it. So that means I can basically just take this and bloop it in there. So that thing is in there good. And I mean, you know, that doesn't look terrible bad. I think it'll, I mean, it'll certainly keep the weather out. And that's, I mean, what else are boots for, you know? So I think that's gonna be, it's gonna be solid. So now I'm going to double check that all these holes are lining up, and I'm gonna blast all these factory screws in there. And then I'm just gonna leave it there until we actually, I have the shift tower on the transmission actually taped over right now, so once we slam it in there, then at least I know this is sealed up from weather, except for yonder. Bits of metal, I didn't even show you guys all that. So at least I know that this is relatively sealed up until the weekend. But yeah, so that's like everything that came out of there. You can see how it's just a whole mess of little pieces, and like I just kept feathering it back. Apparently this down here has like a, you can see that little piece right there. It actually pops out. So it's like what do you want to call it? Perforated, like pre-perforated to this lower cardboard heat sound shield something or other. So if you wanted to, instead of dealing with from the inside, which, I mean, either way you have flammable stuff on both sides, so I don't know if it'd make a difference, but you could just pop that out as soon as your transmission's out, and maybe that would give you like that initial area to cut in. You could go with a hole saw from the bottom or from here, because I know one thing that would have made coming from the bottom would have been a lot easier for some things, because getting these big tools in this area, like with the battery hitting on the dash and like, you know, just trying to do science in this general area, possibly would have been easier for the initial cut, at least from the bottom. So that's actually pretty good to be able to come from the bottom. Yeah, so you can tell that this is a little cattywampus down here. I could probably relieve that, but at the same time, I don't know if I really give a care, because I mean, this thing already, it just bleep bloops in there pretty nice. Alright, I've been watching a lot of Vice Grip Garage, so shout out to that guy. Derek is my hero. Yeah, so I guess that's that. I'm just gonna jam these screws in, and then that'll be the end of this video. Tomorrow I should, I'll be able to put this up, and then tomorrow I should be starting on stabbing the clutch in, and then once the clutch parts come in, I can work on that. And then yeah, so little bit by little bit. But so that's it for now. I'll get this uploaded, give you guys something to watch, and I'm really hoping that this was like the first big deal about people not wanting to do a G56 swap, because I know when I first started this, my two biggest issues were, is my truck ever going to run again, you know, with the wiring and converting all that, and am I going to have a big sloppy hole like I'm a high schooler trying to cut into a square body Chevy or something. So this turned out moderately to acceptably straight and clean, so I'm good at that. I'm stoked. Life is good. So now all I have to do is worry about the wiring, the whole is my truck ever going to run again part. I don't think that's going to be as big a deal as possible, but alright, so I will see you guys later, and we'll get working on this next video where we stab the clutch, the trans, and finish up the coolant bypass. Alright, y'all take care.